So I was recently working on a project as a cinematographer, and the director asked me an interesting question. When is it appropriate to put the subject in the center of the frame? And although I felt like I knew the answer, I couldn't quite explain it using words. So I started researching everything I could about center framing and single point perspective, and that's what I'm gonna talk about today. So the golden standard in art, photography, and film is the rule of thirds. Imagine a tic-tac-toe board, and the goal is to keep the subject in the intersecting lines. It's pleasing to the eye, and it also reminds you if someone else is in the frame or in the scene. Stanley Kubrick loved to break this rule by putting the subject in the center of the frame and using one-point perspective. He was obsessed with symmetry. Probably due to the fact that many of Kubrick's films are in one way or another violent, he uses symmetry to create a psychological reaction in the audience.
This sort of thing has cropped up before, and it has always been due to human error.
Kubrick uses the leading lines and the symmetry to create a creepy feeling to it. And if you've ever seen a Wes Anderson film, then you know he's a huge fan of symmetry and center framing. He uses symmetry to highlight the fact that every frame is precisely composed, giving the sense that each scene is a tableau or stage setting. These carefully staged scenes also reference well-known works of art. For example, in this scene from Moonlight Kingdom, it emulates Da Vinci's Last Supper. Or this scene emulating an Alex Colville painting. And the same goes for Stanley Kubrick, who also emulates art. In fact, there are many examples where filmmakers copy art that is center framed. And so maybe it's this connection to art and literature that somehow we connect center framing to fairy tales and more simplistic storytelling.
Wow.
Actually, Roger Deakins talks about this, how it can make it look like a picture book. Here's his thoughts on center framing for the movie Kundun.
I think of Kundun, where Martin Scorsese wanted something fairly proscenium. He wanted the Dalai Lama, whoever was playing the Dalai Lama, to be in the central frame. He wanted a symmetry because it reflected the spirituality of their religion, of Buddhism anyway. We were creating something which was more kind of a picture book.
So this is another great use of center framing, to take the subject and put them in the center in an immersive environment. And it's a great way to show off the landscape or the scenery by having a wide shot with your subject right in the center. And Westerns did it all the time, most strikingly used in high noon, as the clock ticks forward towards noon, and the sheriff's supporters become fewer and fewer. He moves gradually to the exact middle of the frame, nothing surrounding him but emptiness, as the fellow townspeople left him. So for me, the biggest case to use center framing in my work is that it simply adds weight to the moment. It can create a sense of loneliness, so we feel for the character and their struggle, or it creates a sense of stark isolation in a villain and we ponder their dark intentions. It can highlight fear in a character. Like in this scene, Split. Look at how the attacker is on the rule of thirds, but the victim is dead center of the frame. It can be used for power and dominance. It can be used to emphasize formality or a stuffiness, like in this scene from American Beauty where we watch Lester in his performance review, or this scene where we see the suffocating nature of his home life. Both of these scenes where, as the viewer, are uncomfortable watching. It can suggest a contrast or a connection between characters when the camera cuts back and forth and both characters are centered in the frame, so it feels like they're the same person or they're connected in some way. Maybe my favorite use of center framing was how they did it in the movie There Will Be Blood. There was such a mystery to that movie, and they created so much tension by putting the main character in the center of the frame, where you would question his intentions, if he was good, if he was bad. That movie looked like a painting. There was such an interesting aspect to it from center framing. There's some boring and obvious reasons why you'd want to use center framing. If the subject is addressing the camera and looking directly in the lens, then yeah, it makes sense to have them in the center. If you're doing a tracking shot, then obviously you would have them in the center. It would make sense to have them in the rule of thirds. Or if they're having their big moment on stage and they're performing, then you put them in the center of the frame. That's just easy. So there you have it. Now if someone asks, what reason do you have to put someone in the center of the frame? Well, I guess I still don't have an easy answer, but I guess I would just tell them to watch this video and think about it and come to their own conclusion. That's all I have for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.